Okay, welcome back to the Raising Rock podcast. I am joined with a longtime friend, Lauren Castillo. We grew up together. I grew up watching you. You were more grown up when I was growing up. We're a little bit of an age gap, but we grew up together, went to church together. We know a lot of the same friends and family. And Lauren has such an incredible story of redemption and what God has done in her life. She became a mom at 16 and has battled marriage challenges and postpartum challenges and has so battled sobriety, and the list goes on, and the Lord has met her in every season of that. And I'm so excited to walk into this conversation with her. If you feel like your life is too messy and you are joining in with a messy life, know that God is still sovereign and has an amazing plan for your life. And I hope that this story and conversation with Lauren encourages you. So let's jump into it. Lauren, welcome to Raising Rock. Yeah. So before we jump in, let's give the audience a little bit of a background. How do we know each other? Tell me a little bit about maybe your childhood and where our paths would have crossed, and we'll just kind of jump into it from there.
Well, I mean, we were long time attenders of your grandpa's church.
Yep.
Yeah, we were at San Diego First Assembly for many years. My great uncle was actually the architect of the church.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was your, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
How funny.
Armin Mattia. Yeah, so my family.
My papa still speaks so highly.
Oh yeah, we love Pastor D. I know. So my family has been part of the Assemblies of God and First Assembly since it was on 6th and Fur.
Wow.
So, yeah. So when it went up to, being overlooking Mission Valley. Yeah. So my family has been there generations. So that is obviously where we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. That's where
So
we've
grew up
been.
in the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
Big part of your I remember your family at church.
Oh yeah, we volunteered.
Vividly.
We were there all the services, Sunday school, main service, back on Sunday nights, midweek.
All the things. The Royal Rangers.
Yeah.
What was the girl version? I always forget.
Yes,
Rainbow?
Missionettes.
No. Missionettes. That's
Rainbows
what it
was like, little,
little
kids.
kids.
And then, Royal Rangers. And my brothers loved that. Yeah.
All the
and then
things.
the Missionettes. Yep. And I love Sunday school. And I remember when the new building was built and we were so excited to be in the brand new Sunday school classes, and Mr. and Mrs. Hastings were my third and fourth grade Sunday school teacher. That was my first Bible I got for memorizing the 23rd Psalm, books of the Bible. Oh yeah. It's just embedded in me. That place is, home for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I often think about this, when I can't fall asleep at night, the things that my brain does when I can't sleep at night. I have such a bad memory, and I don't know why I have a bad memory, but I have blocked out so much of my life, but I can still visually walk through every square inch
Isn't that crazy?
of that church.
Yeah.
And I'll walk up the stairs from the fellowship hall up to the back side of the sanctuary and my papa's office, all those little random little hallways and staircases and I don't know. It's just so funny, the things that are in our minds.
And my mom worked there too.
I remember.
So she was the assistant to Mike DeVito back in the day when he was a youth pastor, and then she stayed on and ended up managing the office. She was there for quite a long time before she moved on. Yeah.
So our families have a lot of history together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about who you are today. And then we'll kind of get into the story that brought you to who you are today. So let's start with now, and then we'll kind of work our way backwards.
Okay. So, give me a little bit more particular.
What are you doing now? Are you working? How old are your kids? What would someone say about you? Friends in your life. How would they describe Lauren? And then we'll dig backwards.
Okay. Let's see. So I've been married to my husband, Russell. We met when I was 12 in youth group. Okay. I was literally in 6th grade. And we've been married now almost 23 years. Wow. Been together almost 30. Our oldest, Dominic, is about to be 28. He's married. His wife is America. I love them.
Her name's America?
America.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And then next is Isabella. She's 21. And then Giovanni is 17 and Seraphina's 15. Wow. So we currently live in Meridian, Idaho. I know I left San Diego. It's so hard to think. It's been 8 years that we've been up there, but I actually work here in San Diego. I work remotely, and I work for a small law firm, and I'm a paralegal, and I've been doing that for a few years now. I was a stay-at-home mom for about 12 years. And yeah, it was, I don't know, just so many different things going on. But yeah, I don't know. What would they say? What would people, I don't know. I love the church still. I volunteer. I've always been part of kids ministry, youth group. I don't know. I love being involved. So a lot of my friends in Idaho are from obviously church. That community is very important to me. I love getting outside. I love when it's sunny and I can take a walk. It's not always sunny up there and I'm sad about it. Yeah, so that's what just has been going on.
Well, there's obviously a big story that got you here today, and that's why I was so excited to have you on the podcast and really dig into that. Where do you want to start?
Oh my gosh. You tell me. What are the pressing things? What jumps out?
Tell me. Let's talk about Dominic. Let's talk about finding out that you were pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
At 16.
Yeah.
You're in youth group. You're involved at church. You're there all the time. I remember Dominic as a baby. I don't really remember pregnancy or like an announcement. I think I was a little too young to be aware of that, but I remember Dominic as like a young child.
Yeah.
But walk me through being pregnant at 16.
It was crazy. I mean, I was heavily involved in the church. I was actually on the leadership team at the time for, where we could like not really apply to be on the leadership team. At the time, Rick McCullough was my youth pastor and my mom was working at the church, and, I had entered my sophomore year of high school and I met somebody at school, and, that was my boyfriend, and just really obviously got swept up in having this idea of having a boyfriend in high school and seeing all my friends and like, oh, okay. And I was like, I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing. Even though on Sundays and Wednesdays, I was showing up to church being that like kid that was like all involved. It was the other days of the week, right? Getting distracted and having those things like wanting to be like everybody else. I got pregnant 6 weeks into my junior year of high school. And it was like just rocked my world. It was really just challenging and scary and like, wow, this is really happening. And then I broke up with that guy a few months after that, and that was it. Didn't go back. And Russell, my current husband, my only husband, we'd always been friends. And so I got really sick. I was like violently ill when I got pregnant. Okay. So I stopped going to school physically. I started doing online school. So Russell would come by the house and say hi, and, just started like that friendship kind of started like blooming, I guess, a little bit. And I still kept in contact with Dominic's biological dad. He was still involved in those first like few years of life. And then Russell and I started dating when Dominic was just a few months old. And that was trying to navigate that dynamic, trying to finish senior year of high school.
Did you ever go
with
back
a baby?
To campus?
Yeah.
Who had the baby during that?
God bless my sister. She had left to go to Vanguard, actually. So when I got pregnant, she was up at Vanguard her freshman year, and she came back. Dominic was born in June of 97. And so she came back after freshman year, and actually her and Russell took turns taking care of Dominic. I only had 4 classes in the morning, and then I was like done by like mid-afternoon, like lunchtime. Yeah, and they like split duties taking care of him. And then I went and finished senior year of high school, and then I went to Grossmont College to do some classes, and he went into the daycare, and just the life of trying to figure out how to manage going to school and then having a job and then having a kid, and
a lot. Did you always know that you were going to keep him? And I don't mean in the sense of like abortion. Did you always know that you wouldn't adopt him, that you would?
It was immediately my mom was like, okay, like let's figure out how this is going to work. And there was a Christian agency, I think out in like El Cajon area. And I remember her taking me there, and I don't remember if it was like the girls lived at this house, but there were pregnant girls there, teen girls. And it was like this organization that helped these girls who were going to adopt out their kids. And I remember meeting with them and talking with them. And then I remember talking to a couple who were looking to adopt. It was just like, I think back, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy to think like that I was trying to like navigate what is this going to even look like. And I just remember feeling like, no, like I made this decision and I got pregnant, and I don't know, like I'm not going to walk away from something that was my decision in the first place.
Yeah.
And I just said, if I was going to do adoption, it would be closed adoption. Like, I'm just like, I feel like I'm very black and white about certain things. And so, I don't know, I just felt the Lord being like, no, like, just do it. Like, you can totally do this. And yeah, I remember telling my mom, like, no, like, I'm not gonna adopt the baby out. Like, I'm gonna have this baby. And honestly, like, it was the support of my family that helped me be able to make that decision, right? Because my parents I still was going to live at home. They were still going to help support me. Like, yeah, I was going to go to school and, have a job or whatever, but they still allowed me. And
you were so young.
Yeah.
You needed that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I come from a very close-knit Italian family. And so it was like, okay, all hands on deck. Like, we're all going to figure this out together. And so it was that supportive, family unit that was like, okay, we'll figure this out. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you and Russell were friends. He helped with Dominic. Obviously, there was romance. At some point, you guys started dating. What did the transition from dating to marriage, kind of walk me through that season of your life together?
So we were young and trying to navigate having a kid in the relationship immediately is very different than dating without, a kid, right? Yeah. And so we dated for 5 years before we got married because, again, we were really young, trying to establish how we're going to support our family. How are we going to, what does school look like for me? Russell was in a band at the time he was touring and traveling, which wasn't conducive to having a family. So it was, let's have some time pass here before we decide to actually get married. And so I was 22 when we got married. And at that point, Russell decided to go to EMT school, start to navigate like how his career what that would look like. And I was still working at the college. And yeah, so Dominic was 5 when we got married, our little ring bearer.
So cute. So marriage, how soon after that was Isabella born?
Yeah.
What was that season like?
Oh my gosh. So of course we had this kid, Dominic was 5 and I was like, okay, we can't wait too long. Then these kids are going to be super far apart. We just started figuring out like, okay, when are we going to have a kid? What are we going to do? So Isabella and Dominic are 7 years apart. So within a couple years of getting married, I got pregnant with Isabella. And yeah, that was the first. Having Isabella really rocked me. I don't know if it was because I was 24 and like obviously I had Dominic when I was a teen, and just the pregnancies were similar. I was still sick, but it was the after part. Like I don't recall having like the postpartum issues with Dominic, but after Isabella, it was very evident that I was in a state of postpartum depression, psychoses even. And so that was a huge factor within that pregnancy and postpartum journey. Russell was actually entering into his first fire academy. And for anyone who has a first responder spouse or military spouse, like, they're unavailable. Yeah. Really unavailable. So it was trying to navigate having this elementary age, kid and then this newborn. And I was back then they didn't have maternity leave like they do now. we didn't have the rights and all the things that we, have now. And there wasn't family leave and all that stuff. So I literally went back to work 6 weeks to the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you still battling that postpartum depression? Yeah. So what did that look like? I've not struggled with that, so I'm really naive to
No, yeah. Now having had 4 kids, like I know what was happening at the time, and I didn't know then, obviously what I know now, but it was, lack of sleep, the hormonal shift, just there were so many different levels of what was going on, and it was hard. Thankfully, my sister-in-law was at home and she was able to take care of Isabella. She had a newborn herself. Eliana was only 3 months old. I don't know how she navigated it, but she somehow navigated taking care of kind of both girls at the same time.
Wow.
So I would literally drop off, Dominic at school. I would drop off Isabella to my sister-in-law, Karina. She would have the girls. I would work all day. I would come back, pick her up. It was a lot. It was a lot, but I had to work, we weren't in a position where I could stay home, and I did love working. So it was really challenging. And then, that postpartum state probably lasted, I don't know, what felt like 6 to 8 months. It felt like a long time. And then soon after, like, I had to start thinking, like, okay, are we going to have another kid? How far apart should they be? I'm still working full time. I have 2 kids now. And so a couple years, Isabella was 3.5 when Giovanni was born. And we were like, okay, great. We got 3 kids. And I was like, so, like, here we go. Like, this will be fine. But then the postpartum hit again. And it was, like, again, really challenging to navigate. And my boss at the time was super understanding. And he was like, do you want to go down part-time? And I'm like, I think I should, because this is like so much going on. And so I worked part-time for about 6 months.
Did that help?
Yeah, it definitely helped. I still had I still struggled. I also, was like, okay, different with Isabella. I didn't get on any medication. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I really didn't. Like, I was like, I'm just a lunatic, like, I'm just crazy, right? And so with Giovanni, I was like, all these things, all these signs were happening. And so I reached out more for assistance. And in that, they were like, okay, let's try these different medications. Let's do these different things. And unfortunately, like, I didn't like how it made me feel. And it was like, okay, let's try a different one. Let's try a different one. And I never felt like I found one that worked. And all along, I was drinking too. So it was like this combination of like coping by having, a drink, coping by trying to be on medication, coping with all this chaos in my life in different ways. And so I worked part-time for 6 months, and then I went back to work, and within
back to work full time.
Back to work full time. And then within 4 or 5 months going back full time, I found out I was pregnant again, unexpectedly.
So not wanting another.
No.
You were like, we're done. We're good to go.
Yep.
Okay.
And I vividly remember being in the car. We were driving somewhere, and I was like putting makeup on. Russell's driving. The kids are in the back. We were going somewhere, and I was just like breaking out. And I was just like looking, and I was like, oh my God, if I'm pregnant right now. And I just kept thinking, what is going on? Because I just did, that only happened usually when I was pregnant. And I just remember I took a pregnancy test like a couple weeks later.
Lit up like a Christmas tree.
And I was like, this is not happening. This is not happening. I'm like, how is it? My first kid, I was unplanned. Okay. And now this last kid is going to be. And Russell and I were like, oh my God. Giovanni was not even a year old. And I was like, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I had just, I was just coming out of the postpartum, and now I'm walking back into another pregnancy. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Were the pregnancies as mentally challenging as afterwards, or were they just more physically challenging?
Yeah, they were more physically challenging. I was just more sick, that
nauseous, tired,
the morning
like
sickness was all day. I mean, I was literally like trying to figure out how to like navigate working and kids and needing to,
just
throw up.
Utter exhaustion. Yeah.
And so it was actually, we had switched churches. We weren't at First Assembly anymore. We were at a different church. And I had recently found out I was pregnant with Serafina. And again, I'm working full time. We got the 3 kids. And Russell was in the early stages of his career and very busy. And I was like managing so much on my own. And we had gone to church that Sunday morning, and the women's pastor was actually preaching. And her sermon was on leftovers. And she described that the Lord wants us, this will be for you, wants us women to be in our homes, wants us to be the, caretakers, and wants us to be part of our kids' lives and our spouses' lives, and wants us to be focusing on giving of ourselves, right? And describing that if we are constantly giving to others, we're not spending time with the Lord. We're not really spending time with our family. We're just always overextending ourselves in all these areas. What are we giving God? What are we giving our family? We're just giving them leftovers. Like, we're just giving them the little bits that we have instead of really saying, okay, how do I prioritize? How do I reestablish what the Lord says that he wants for the home to look like and for us, to give to our families? And it didn't mean like you couldn't work. It was just really about like, how do you have like this mentality of like, this is a priority and a focus. And I just felt the Lord being like, you got to quit your job. You can't work. You're about to have another kid that's about to be 19 months apart almost to the day. Like, and you have, Dominic was 12, 13 at that time. So I had a teenager. Isabella was entering elementary school. So she was 5. Giovanni was literally barely a year. And I'm like, okay. So I really went to work the next day with a letter of resignation.
Wow.
And my boss looked at me and was like, are you sure? Because once I turn this into the district, like I can't undo it. And I remember being like, yeah, I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
And it was not an easy decision. It was definitely the Lord saying like, he's got to provide. I was making decent money. And, Russell was like, I guess I'll just start picking up overtime. And I'm like, okay. And Giovanni had just turned 1. And then, so the remainder of my pregnancy, I had become the stay-at-home mom, not knowing what I was walking into.
Amen. Amen to that.
No idea what I was walking into. So, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And just really going, oh my God, okay, now I don't have this income. Now I have like a full day of like managing all this chaos.
Honestly, I promise you, going to work every day is easier.
Oh my gosh.
Than being with kids. It is such a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Physically, emotionally, financially, like it is a sacrifice on every level to be home with your kids. There is no greater work.
Oh, yeah.
It is holy. It is important work.
Yeah.
There is no greater work. It is hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think people talk about that transition enough and how hard it is. And I so resonate with what that woman spoke about the leftovers. And that is something I said to my husband and to people in my life as I was leaving my career is everyone's getting the leftover version of me. I go to work and I give everyone at my job the very best of me.
Yeah.
They get the put together Elise. They get the dress nice Elise. They get the poised and professional Elise, the power and influence Elise. And then I come home and I'm not a bad person at home, but I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not taking care of my family. I'm not taking care of my husband. My priorities were just so upside down. And it was a really hard transition. And it's so funny. I look back. It's only been a year and a half, but I look back at that season of posting on social media of I was so proud of this transition and that I still am. I'm very proud of the fact that I did listen to what the Lord, it was all God. I get zero credit for what that decision, that time frame looked like in our life. But when I walked away, the hill that I was going to die on was every mom needs to be home with her kids. That is the answer.
Yeah.
All your problems will be solved if you are home raising your kids.
Yeah.
And I was humbled realizing, okay, I've been home for 3 months now and we're still having outbursts. I've been home for 6 months now and my kids are still misbehaving. And it wasn't just being home. It was being home with intention and purpose and being rooted in God's word. And that's really why we started Raising Rock, is because I'm I need tools. I was raised in the church and I know my Bible. Talk about Mr. and Mrs. Hastings memorizing the books of the Bible.
Yeah.
I know the Bible.
Yeah.
And yet I was still finding myself, okay, I need to talk to my kids about tattling. What does God say about the heart of caring for others and what tattling really means and looks like? Where do I find that in the Bible? And I'm okay, if I raised in the church am finding myself in need of tools to equip me in this motherhood journey, somebody else has to be in need of them. I can't be the only one.
Well, and we
struggling.
And we struggle with perception.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So we don't want, and I went to the moms group every Wednesday. I did all the things. And even within the body of Christ, we seem to have this, this fear of just being vulnerable
being
and
seen for who we really
Yeah.
are as sinners in need of a savior.
and just like,
Yep.
we're all just doing our best. Like,
Yep.
and what does this look like? And I think all the time, I mean, on so many levels, not just motherhood, but my sobriety, my marriage, everything. Like, I don't know how people do it without Christ. I don't know. I really don't.
It's hopeless.
It's crazy. But, you know, I just know even being, you know, in that relationship with the Lord, it's still challenging, all these aspects of life. But, you know, we just, it definitely, that transition of trying to go full-time working 3 kids to all of a sudden I'm home with 3 kids, pregnant, trying to figure out like how, I mean, we needed to move into another house. We were out of room. Like, there were so many things going on at the same time. And Russell worked a ton.
Yeah.
Worked
So you're
so
home now.
much. Yep.
You're new baby, stay-at-home mom of 4 kids.
Yep.
Your husband's working all the time.
Yep.
You're moved. Like, all these things are happening. Where were you at emotionally in that season?
It was rough. It was really rough because I was also scared that, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to have horrific postpartum again.
Yeah.
So it was like trying to prepare myself. Like, when I love Serafina, but like, I was not a happy pregnant person. Okay. I was like, why is this happening again? And so I had her and we literally moved into another house. She was, I think 6-7 weeks old when we moved. Just trying to move all these people, all this stuff, have this newborn. You know, thank God they invented the Moby or this sling.
The carriers.
Oh my gosh, because all the new things that have come out, okay, side note, tangent for a second, like, are so amazing.
Yeah.
Like, when Dominic was little, like, I think it was like a baby Bjorn, and I used to always like accidentally clip his skin at the same time when I was trying to clip these things. It was so sad. So anyways, I literally wore Serafina. I'm chasing after Giovanni, who's 19 months old. Got Isabella over here, Dominic running, just talk about sports. I was trying to be Uber everywhere. There was so much going on. And I had this fear of like the postpartum again. And so I try to be like ahead of the game. I try to make sure I had my village ready. Everybody can help me, you know, who can help manage the kids. My mother-in-law was a godsend. She's still like, you know, she wasn't working. And so she was able to help, you know, run Dominic around and help me quite a bit with all these kids. And I got on medication again, you know, and it still didn't work. You know, it didn't completely take away all the things, but I think it helped, you know, some of it. It helped, you know, keep me in a more sane position than I would have been had I not tried it. But yeah, it was rough. That was the time I had a male psychiatrist who told me that postpartum wasn't real. And he was like, it's in your head, and like, this is what we do, so here's the meds. And I was like, sir, you don't understand. Like, this is real. Like, this is for sure real. And they just don't have an understanding of it. They don't know what fuels it, what causes it. Everybody's different. It presents different in everybody. And so they just want to have like a simple solution that just, doesn't work for everybody. So it was hard. But I think, again, having that community of women, trying to have like other moms that were stay-at-home moms, having a structure, a sense of my daily routine, what did it look like, trying to make sure I was exercising again, trying to make sure I was like taking care of myself, things that I hadn't done on the other kids, you know, that I'm trying to learn, right? Yeah, so it was a crazy transition into 4 kids.
And where was your marriage at in this season?
I thought we were in a good place. I look back and, you know, we had been married, oh my gosh, 8 years? I think 7 or 8 years. And, you know, it was, you know, we'd already been together for so long. You know, we're just like in this routine, right? And I think that me not working put a lot of pressure on him. And he felt a lot of, as most men, responsibility to provide. And I think that there was just a level of stress that I didn't think about, that I was home managing these small people and trying to do all these things, and I'm trying to mentally and physically and emotionally recover from having a kid. And I think I missed some things probably, and needing to make sure that, you know, he was getting whatever he needed. And I thought we were in a good place. And, you know, year 9, we hit some bumps. It was definitely some questionable things, some things that were really intense and, sad and devastating and really, rocked our marriage. And again, I don't know how people I don't know how people do it without the Lord. I really, and it was hard. It was a hard time.
And at this season of life, was alcohol a really big part of your picture? Was that not until kind of later?
Yeah, it's always been a constant. It's always been a constant. Again, I think culturally, it's something that we it's just, that's what we did. I just grew up, have a glass of wine, whatever, have a beer. But it started becoming a daily thing. It started becoming like, okay, handle the kids, handle the day, get to the end of the day. Like, how do I relax? I'm a big sports person. I grew up and my dad loves baseball. So I would literally go back and forth in the evenings. I would either sit down and have a drink and either watch ESPN and just kind of, zone out. Or I love reality TV. So I'd watch Bravo, Housewives, just something to like disassociate, just like relax in the evening. But my intake started increasing and it started not being enough, just the one glass, or the one beer. Then it was like, just slowly started to need more and more. And yeah, it just, as life was hitting me really hard, it was like, I told myself like I deserved it at the end of the day. Like I made it another day, so let's just relax. It was also social, the mommy wine culture is like huge. People come over and, okay, kids are going to hang out. We're going to have a glass of wine, have people over. It was just always a part of everything.
Even in Christian circles? Mm-hmm. I feel like it's a thing in Christian circles?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was definitely, because the group of women that I hung out with, everybody drank. Yeah.
Well, I want to get back to how you overcame that and what the Lord did in your marriage and in your sobriety and all of that. But I want to like pause on this really quick. Why do you think we've entered into like an era of society? And I kind of feel like it's shifting a little bit because I feel like mocktails have become like more of like a cool thing to do. Mm-hmm. But why do you think that like mommy hour and mommy juice and all these cute, catchy terms for moms needing to drink to cope with their life has become such a thing?
I mean, I think it's just become like more social, like a social acceptance. The reality is like, alcohol can be, just as addictive as any other type of form of whatever. Like, I don't know. It's interesting because now, like legalizing marijuana in California, like I've seen, the uptick in people like, oh, let's hang out and do this and have a gummy, or let's, want to come over. And it is even within the Christian culture, like the world is so crazy. Yeah. It's so crazy. But I think we get together and it's more the norm than not. And I think like as moms, like we kind of like cheer each other on, like, you deserve a break. You deserve a break. Like, we work so hard taking care of our families and our homes. And again, some work and do both. And it's like, let's just, let's do a happy hour. I was always trying to find reasons to get together with these women and leave my kids with my husband and, okay, somebody else handle that. I'm going to go hang out with my girlfriends. But yeah, even within the Christian community, it was like, it wasn't taboo. It was definitely like, this is what we do.
And now that you're on the other side of it, and how long have you been sober?
9 years.
9 years. Do you, like, how does it affect when you see other moms that are believers drinking at the end of the day to cope with their day and all of, do you have feelings about that? Or is it just like, hey, it's not for me, but if it's for you, like, how do you feel about that just in general?
I mean, not really, but I mean, I will say I lost friends.
When you stopped drinking?
Yeah. When really? I just, like, the invites stopped. It started, the people that I was hanging out with that did drink, stopped, kind of asking to hang out because they didn't know how to really behave, like, because that was such a part of like when we got together, And yeah, I don't know. You're right. Mocktails, sobriety. It's so interesting how the shift is happening.
Yeah.
I think more people, like a lot of people are like in their like wellness era. And so they're becoming more aware of like the impact of alcohol and how unhealthy it is and all these things. And, no, I mean, I still am around people who drink and now that I'm so far, like those early years of trying to be sober, like it was odd. Like people didn't really know how to act around me. They were like, do we like pour this in front of her? Like, do we not offer it? Like, what's going on? And so now that I'm so far past it, like, it's not a big deal to anybody, like whatever. And I don't know, like, to each their own, you know. This is my own journey, and this is between me and God at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah.
So whatever.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You did hard work.
Yeah. I mean, it's still hard.
Absolutely.
Right? Because just because you take something, an element away that you use as a coping mechanism, now you got to figure out, well, how are you coping?
Yeah.
You know?
And how did you start coping? So kind of back to like your journey, like what did that journey look like? What did coping look like?
Yeah, it was a lot of reflection on what was going on. What's the driving force? You know, what are the things that are the environmental factors that are causing me to feel like I need to do this to deal with my life, to handle whatever's going on. And that was not a clear thing at first. And it was not an easy, like, oh, it's just that. So if I get rid of that, everything's fine. Because my husband wasn't going to quit his job that he worked, you know, what seemed like 1 million hours a week, you know. My kids were still going to have 4 different personalities and needs, right? You know, my family, extended family was going to have influence. There was so many different variables. And so I think when I decided, you know, I had tried to get sober like 1 or 2 other, you know, dry January, whatever.
Sober curious is like the term.
All the things. So I had tried to do it like, you know, I think 1 or 2 times before. And, you know, it didn't stick because I wasn't in a place where I could really like, you know, and this final time it was Super Bowl Sunday and I was by myself with the kids and we went to like 2 or 3 parties within the neighborhood and I got home and that was it. That was the last time I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore.
So something happened. Like you just didn't feel good or were you embarrassed?
I got super, super sick. And I don't even know if Dominic will remember, but Dominic came in and I was like totally sick in the bathroom and he got scared and he was like, I'm going to call Dad. And I remember him calling Russell and I remember like trying to talk to Russell and Russell was like, you have got to freaking stop this. Like you have to. And I just remember being like, what example am I setting for my kids at this point? Like, and the thing is like, you would never know that I was intoxicated. Like, I mean, somebody would have to validate that. But I've asked Russell in the past, like, do you remember me being like, was I crazy when I was intoxicated? And he was like, no, like you were really like a good functioning alcoholic. Like, it wasn't like I was like plastered in front of my kids, like,
or sloppy. Or,
no,
yeah.
It was one of those things that it was just like a constant. But I knew once I started needing more than like 1 beer, or like I was increasing the alcohol content in my beers, or I was drinking a whole bottle of wine versus 2 glasses of wine. Like I started becoming aware of it. And so that final time when Dominic was like, Mom is sick and I can't figure out how to help her. And I was by myself and I'm like, you know, that's it. And I'm like, okay, I cannot do this anymore. And I was part of, have you heard of Moms in Prayer?
Wait, is it MOPS or is it different?
Different.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like an international Christian organization where it's usually driven by the school. So usually Moms in Prayer will come to a school and they, you know, basically a group of moms get together every week to pray over their kids and their school. So at the time I was part of this prayer group. Dominic had amazing friends in high school, like 6, 7 kids that I was just super close with their parents. And there was a mom in particular who was hosting the mom's prayer at her house. And so I had gotten to know her over the years. And I had shared with her my struggles with alcohol. I had shared my whole life, obviously, because we were every week praying. And I remember her being like, telling her like, you know, what had happened. And I'm like, I can't drink anymore. And she was just like, well, do you want to go to Celebrate Recovery? And I was like, what is that? And so she like told me about Celebrate Recovery. And I was like, I don't have time to go to a meeting. I got all these kids. I got things going on, you know? And I remember her being like, I will go with you. And I was like, no, it's okay. Like, in a couple weeks, she would ask me again, like, hey, they have one, you know, do you want to go with me? And I was like, finally, I'm like, you know, I'll go. And it was her going with me. It was that supportive, another like person who wasn't judging me, wasn't like condemning me. That was literally like, I'm just going to support. And going to that I was like, okay, I can do this. And I remember telling Russell, like, okay, I got to get to these meetings. And I remember he's always working. So then I was like, how do I find childcare to go to a meeting? And then I was, like, is it easier to be sober or is it easier to drink? It was taking work to figure out how to get where I needed to go. I also did an outpatient program through my health insurance at the time, which was crazy because I'm showing up like this mom of all these kids and I'm like, hey, like I'm like a functional alcoholic. How do I, and they had like court orders. Like all these people had to be there for like different reasons.
And you're just willingly.
And I'm like volunteering to like be there. It's people like putting their papers, can you sign for the judge that I came to my class? And it was like so weird. And I just was like, is this really where I need to be? But it was like a combination of all those things, right? People praying for me, still being part of the church, going to outpatient, trying to be part of Celebrate Recovery. Like I was just desperate for all these different things to try to help kind of carry me through that time, and that early journey was hard. And the therapist was like, you have to try this, meditate, do that. And I was just in the early stages where I was just surviving. Like I would literally force myself to go to bed at the same times the kids did, like 7:30, 8 o'clock, because I knew I was going to want to drink. And I was like, nope, we're all going to bed. Everybody's going to bed. And so it really was a willpower thing and just being like, I am just going to strong arm this and I'm going to do what I can. But it probably took a few years, probably 3 years before I started trying to find other coping mechanisms. It was really just like God and I are going to do this. Like, we're just going to make it through. But it was a year into my sobriety that we moved to Idaho. So there was a level in that first year of sobriety of environmental and trying to figure out, like, can I be strong enough to really change what I need to change? Or like, Lord, what do I need to do to really have this change occur? And I remember like going back and forth with the Lord being like, how do I do this? What does this look like? Is this an AA program? Is this Celebrate? What are we doing? And, we were struggling financially at the time. And I just had some friends that her parents were moving to Idaho. And I remember looking and I just remember praying and seeing like what the life up there could be. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I remember telling Russell, like, do you think you could fly down and go to work? And he was like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. Is there anybody else on your job that like does, like they live somewhere else and they work? And he was like, I think maybe one guy. And I was like, go talk to him and see how he does it. And like, that was 2016. So that
he's a firefighter.
Because he's a firefighter.
So he'll do these like long stretches and then he's off for a long stretch.
Yeah. But obviously living in San Diego, he works 10 days a month or 24-hour shifts. But because he was the primary, provider, he was working like 96 hours in a row, and then he'd be off for 24, and then he would work like another 90. Like, I mean, out of 30, 31 days in a month, like I think he was home like 4.
So he was working all the time
because we were where we were living and what was managing all these kids. So anyways, I just really felt the Lord being like, well, I'm gonna figure it out, just go. And I remember my family being like, are you out of your mind? How are you gonna, first of all, why would you leave? And I was like, well, there's a long list. And then how are you going to figure out this like commuting with his job? And I just remember, as we all do, right? We look back and we see the Lord's hand, like lining all the things up. My kids were not happy. My family was like, what are you doing? And I just was like, I don't know. God said I was supposed to go, so I'm going. Like, this is where we're going. And I remember getting up there going, what? And going, I just want to have a drink.
Yeah.
I just want to go to the bar and sit, and I don't care what sports is on. I just want to sit and have a drink and watch the TV and literally zone out on all of what is happening in my life right now. And it was just one day at a time, one foot in front of the other. And, those first few years in Idaho were not easy. The kids really were mad at me. really mad at me. And, you know, out of 4 kids, 2 still would move back to this day, and the other 2 are happy that we're there. And, but at least the 2 that want to move back still see now in hindsight that it was a good move, but they still miss being in San Diego. They still miss what this sense of home brings them, you know? Yeah. But yeah, so it's been a journey in the last 9 years, and I exercise. I try to get to the gym, try to lift weights or do something at home, walk.
Lift weights, I'm telling you.
It's the jam.
God and lifting weights. The 2 things that will solve all your problems in life.
You know, I'm not like
open your word and lift a heavy weight.
Well, you know what's so funny is, you know, a few weeks ago I was in the gym and I do, you know, 10 minutes on the treadmill before I go lift. And so I always do worship music. You can ask my kids. I got worship music pumping in the house 24/7. It's in my car. That was probably my biggest coping way to cope, is just like, how can I constantly surround myself with the Holy Spirit? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, how can I just constantly just be in alignment? And yeah, I was on the treadmill and I was listening to worship, and obviously Assemblies of God is Pentecostal, and
yes,
we like to move during worship. And I found myself on the treadmill, just raising my hands, and my eyes were closed. And I was like, oh, I'm literally in the gym right now. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. And I did. And then I'm like in between my sets, and I was just like rocking out to worship music. Some people, they listen to all kinds of stuff. And I don't know, for me, like, it's just a sense of like, I'm not always thrilled to be doing all the movements that I'm doing, you know, or working out or whatever. So I like worship music. So yeah.
Your sobriety journey, the challenges in your marriage, did all of this draw you closer to the Lord?
Oh, yeah.
Talk me through your journey and your spiritual journey and what that looked like.
I mean, I got, you know, asked Jesus into my heart when I was 8, you know, kids camp. I mean, gosh, I love Pinecrest. I love just all the things. Like right now, Seraphina, my youngest, is literally volunteering right now at the middle school camp up in Idaho. Yeah. And I don't know, like, if there's anything that, you know, obviously as you get older, you reflect on your childhood, you look back, you see things that your parents did, maybe they didn't do, and some things I agree with and some things I don't. But one of the major things that I can always, you know, be so grateful for is the sense of being part of a church, having the Lord present, you know, growing up in a family of believers. And it doesn't mean you got it right all the time. Doesn't mean it's perfect. But I know, and Russell and I have always agreed, like, at the end of the day, like, our goal as parents is to make sure our kids have their own relationship with the Lord, and that we are doing our best to leave a legacy of faith. And again, we don't always get it right. It's not always the easiest, but I just know that in those times of just like literally getting pregnant at 16, being told I was pregnant, I will never, like, I'm sitting in my closet in my room crying, journaling, Lord, what am I going to do? And it wasn't like writing to myself. It was literally, God, like, what am I going to do about this? How's this going to end? What is this going to look like? Then postpartum, like literally journaling, like, Lord, I don't want to be alive today. How am I going to take care of my kids? What is this going to look like? You know, when my marriage like started falling apart, it's like, all right, God, where are you? Where are you? You know? And again, I just don't know how people do it without him. And even young believers, like trying to help them understand like the power of the Holy Spirit and the power of God, and just in those moments of crisis and, you know, devastation, where you can still have a sense of faith and peace, even though those other emotions are still present. You just still know, like, okay, he's here somewhere in the midst of all of this, you know, and it's not easy to choose that, and it's not easy to believe that. But again, as you get older, you look back and you see the hand of the Lord, and you see his movement. And I'm not going to say I'm like a, you know, I was doing devotions every morning at 5 a.m. Like, I'm not. I love Pastor D. I do love all his stuff on Facebook, okay?
Aww.
I love his one for the road. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I so quick and easy.
Yes, yeah. And I look back And I long for, what's so funny is growing up, listening to Pastor Russell House on Sundays and sometimes being like, I mean, am I in seminary? Like, what is, like, some of it was like going over my head. But in hindsight, I have my Bible that's almost 30 years old, and it's like, date Pastor D. Like, I'm in my Bible seeing all of these years over the last 20, I've had that Bible 28 years, just seeing, where the Lord has shown up. And time again, reflecting and saying, okay, the season of motherhood, I wasn't always in the Word, but, we were still getting to church. I mean, it didn't mean everybody had the right clothes on. It didn't mean we were on time, but we got there.
Yeah.
I was still trying to be in small groups. I was still trying to be, surrounding myself with as much of it as I could, because I knew growing up, the more you immerse yourself in it, the more you feel it, believe it, walk in it, just you're soaking it all up, and then it's continuing to just, always be around you. And again, it doesn't mean I do it perfectly, but I mean, people ask all the time, like, oh, how are you still sober 9 years out? And they're like, what programs? I've never done a 12-step program. I probably should. Okay. But I didn't. I really didn't. And people are like, and there's people that I meet all the time that are, either further ahead in their sobriety journey or they're new to it. And they're like, what do you mean? You don't have a sponsor? You didn't do any programs? I'm like, it's me and my God. It's me and God. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it's what's worked for me.
Yeah.
And it's literally like, I don't know. I don't know what else I would do if I didn't have the Lord constantly in my life. And, choosing to be part of a church, choosing to volunteer in the church, choosing to, build community within the church, just trying to be immersed in it all the time.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm going to pivot a little bit. I think it's a really important conversation to have. And for the sake of time, I'll move us along into that. Before we started filming, we were talking about just generational sin and the impact that has on our children, and walking through that with our children and having hard conversations with our children. I have, Luke is 8 and Benji's 5. And I'm finding myself, and I'm just going to start being so honest and transparent on the podcast, because I hope that other moms are learning from this. I'm in the season with Luke where we are starting to really talk through what he's going to see and experience in the world, because I want to share things with him before the world shares things with him. I want to be, or my husband, whoever it is, him or me, we want to be the first ones to talk to Luke about porn. We want to be the first ones to talk to Luke about Luke and Ben, but Luke's more of the age.
Right, yeah.
And we want them to have our views and our beliefs on alcohol and drugs and pornography and all of these things. And so we're navigating through that, but those conversations have probably looked different in your home. And I'd love to just hear your thought and perspective on, how do you talk about addiction with your kids? How do you talk about some of this generational sin that they will carry and deal with in their life?
Russell and I never sat down and were like, okay, this is how we want to have our life look like. This is what our parenting is going to look like. Probably should have, and we already had Dominic when we got together. So it was kind of like Russell just kind of defaulted to me and how I did things and was like, here, just, okay, you're going to handle it. And I think that it's so important to have those conversations earlier in your marriage.
With your spouse. And figure out how are we going to handle this.
Yes. And I think it would have been good had we done that. And I think that because we got together so young as a couple, got married, fairly young at the time, we did a lot of growing up side by side, and then also while trying to grow our family. And I think in that there was so much learning happening about ourselves at the same time that we're trying to navigate parenting a teenager and younger kids. And so I never stopped and was like, I think today's a great day to talk about this with you. It was just this ever evolving, oh, okay, what's happening? Dominic, I mean, thank God, smartphones didn't really come out until he was, I think, a junior in high school. So what I had to manage when he was in high school versus Serafina, who's 15, whose smartphones have been around now for quite some time, is just very different. So as Russell and I have walked in our journey of growing and unpacking things that we didn't know were even there, we have really tried to become really transparent with our kids. We have realized that our parents' generation just didn't talk about things. And I don't know that it was necessarily like, their fault. It's just, I think as the world, evolves, like we're getting better at saying things out loud, talking about things, wanting to prevent things from, happening in our families that maybe weren't discussed back then. And yeah, so when my kids come to me now, which coming to me is half the battle, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And how pause.
So hard.
How did you foster that with your kids to where they feel comfortable coming and saying, "Hey, Mom, Billy at school showed me a picture of somebody and they didn't have clothes." Like, how did you develop that rapport with your kids?
So I think that has been one of the biggest benefits of moving, is that it was us, the unit of us 6. We didn't have really outside extended family or influence. And so it really fostered this like development of closeness that I don't know if it would have happened if we had stayed here. Perhaps, I don't know. But I try to do things so different. Like my older 2 kids, my discipline style was completely different than my style with my younger 2 kids. My interaction, my expectation, even my level of like respect for them. I think like that's a huge piece for myself, is like really trying to engage with them with a level of respect that they go, okay, I can trust my mom.
Yeah.
I can go talk to her. And I think also being vulnerable with my kids, letting them see me cry in my frustration, letting them understand, like, I apologize. I'm sorry that I just said that. I'm sorry that this is how I responded. Having that just interaction with them and developing that like understanding of like, this is a safe space. What happens inside this house is like private. I'm going to respect where you're at. Like, just, I don't know, just the interaction's different. And so I've been so grateful that my kids have been open with me. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's things that I don't know, but the things that have been so important, they've come to me and said, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with my mental health or pornography or gossip or whatever it might be. And I always tell my friends, like, if your kid comes to you, like, that's half the battle. Like, just be so proud of yourself that something's going a direction that they even want to talk to you. So anyways, when the kids come to us, instead of us being like, oh my God, like, what am I going to say? First of all, I sit next to them instead of like this. I try to sit where we're like, not
side
equals, but like a side by side. Where there's like a sense of like, I'm not talking like to you, right? And it's just more of dialogue, just, letting them talk, not making them feel rushed, not making them feel like, okay, what's the issue? Let's hurry this up. And then saying to them, which I know I was saying to you earlier, like, you're not going to walk this alone because you didn't ask for this. It's in your DNA. It was handed to you. And
meaning the
whatever
addictive
struggle, whatever they're struggling with, there's a level of it, that was handed to them. And I always want our kids to understand, like, from the smallest things of, emotional regulation to addiction to whatever it might be, that's embedded in you somewhere, which means it's from dad or I or both of us. And we're going to walk alongside you. We're not going to let you just flounder. Here's the tools that we've used. So let's try to help. Maybe some of those tools can work for you. And if they don't work, then let's figure out the next best thing. Like, what else do you want to try? And trying to empower them to be able to figure out like what does work for them. And every kid is different. And yeah, it's just not fair. Like they didn't ask for it. And I don't think it's fair to just let your kid go back to their friend and ask like, oh, what are we supposed to be doing about this? Or, even the church, like the church can't raise your kid, you got to raise them, they can be part of the tools, but we can't rely on everybody else.
It's a tool in the toolbox, but it is not.
Yeah. It's not the answer for everything. I think, knowing what the church is teaching your kid is important and stuff like that and being part of that community. But at the end of the day, like it's in your home, how you're spending that time.
You're the one called to disciple your children.
Yeah.
You can't rely on an outside force to do that for you.
And if we're not trying to learn ourselves and we're not trying to better our relationship with Christ, then we can't expect that we're going to be able to assist our kid. It's a constant evolution and growth on a spiritual level that, how I am now at 45, I certainly wasn't at 16. I mean, I would hope not, and I think that, all those years of life experience and especially as spiritual encounters with the Lord over the last, 30 years is like, how can I want to help my kid? I want to give them those things because, this life is rough, how are they going to make it?
Yeah. What would you say, we'll wrap up here in a second. What would you say to the mom who is listening and just feels like her life has gotten messy, or she maybe wants to get sober, or things in her marriage are hard? What advice would you give her?
Wow. I mean, first and foremost, pray.
Yeah.
And people, I know prayer is different for everybody, but I like the element of dialogue with the Lord and just, do you remember that song? I know we got to wrap up. Do you remember that song, I Cry Out for Your Hand? Do you remember that song? I cry out for the hand of the mercy to reach me. Oh my God, it was such a good song. Anyways, it's such a good song. But anyways, I just remember like just always having dialogue, always like, okay, God, can't do it right now. What am I doing? What am I
Talking
doing?
with him
just
like
always,
he's your father.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
And reach out to those that might be believers and those that you trust and say like, this is where I'm struggling. Because the level of accountability that you can have in another believer can empower you to maybe take that first step, right?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, like, never stop learning, never stop researching, never stop, asking the hard questions, and just always know it gets better.
Yep. So
It's just always, it will always get better. The Lord has a plan. Even when we can't see him, he's there.
Yep.
Always.
So true.
Yeah.
I ask every guest at the end of the episode, Raising Rock's 4 core values: respect, obedience, courage, and kindness, and what we're really trying to help moms instill in their children. What does Raising Rock, so raising those 4 values, look like to you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Respect. Same again.
Respect, obedience, courage, and kindness.
God, that's so good. Your mom's so smart.
Everything ladders up to those 4 things.
Yeah.
If you respect the Lord's authority in your life, if you're obedient to him, if you have the courage to stand, I mean, the list just goes on and on. But I feel like every issue we face in life ladders up to one of those 4 core values.
So what was the question again?
What does that look like to you? Or what does that mean in your life in raising kids?
Gosh, I want my kids to have all of those elements, I want my kids to not just have each of those characteristics, but on a godly level.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of parenting these days is, I just want my kid to be kind and, be a positive citizen. And I'm going, we always think beyond.
Yeah.
We always think at the end of the day, where are we going? Where are we headed?
Yep.
And how do we help our kids have those values where they're going to show up to the gates and they're going to see the Lord and he is going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I want my kids to know that is what we focus on.
Yeah.
That is the end goal, know, and that is where our treasure lies. Amen. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for
This
having
was so
me.
good.